Today I'll be interviewing 13-year-old Emily Flowers, an amazing fourth-generation beekeeper from Wewahitchka, Florida, who has already started her own company, Awesome Blossom Honey, and has won Best Honey in the state of Florida. Well, thank you, Emily, for joining us today on the Pollination Podcast. Really happy to have you here. I just want you to tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how many hives you have, how did you start beekeeping?
Okay. Hey, my name's Emily Flowers. I'm from Wewahitchka, Florida. I have 8 hives right now, and I started beekeeping about 3 years ago. I'm a 4th generation beekeeper, and to get into beekeeping, I kind of just went to 4-H, and one of my friends started a club, and it was beekeeping, and I was like, oh, that seems fun, so I went there. And I realized that I do really love beekeeping, so I got with my uncle Gary, and he showed me everything I know now, and he still helps me whenever I need help. And I extracted in his honey house, and he helped me. My first extraction was this year, so he helped me do all of that things and figure out how to do everything like that.
Is your Uncle Gary a commercial beekeeper in Wewa?
Yes, he's a commercial beekeeper. His honey is called Blue-Eyed Girl Honey. 13 years old now.
During the spring, how much are you usually running?
I have about 13 to 15 hives during spring, but we should be growing right after the winter passes and we get this honey flow. We should be growing pretty much all summer.
That's great.
So hopefully we'll get up to about 20 to 25 this summer.
Wow, that's quite a bit. What kind of hives do you run?
We normally try to just we'll get into nuke boxes and we'll keep splitting until they grow, and then we'll get into deeps and then we'll split again and just try and keep growing rather than just getting deeps. And
Okay, so you like to run singles with honey supers on them? Mm-hmm. Do you run 8 or 10 frame hives?
10 frame hives.
Oh
normally.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's I know some people that'll argue with me, but I just feel like you get more production out of them. Those extra 2 frames make a big difference when you start pulling splits and stuff. Mm-hmm. Especially if you ever run a 2-story hive, that's almost a whole nother 5-frame nuke you can pull out of every hive. But yeah, they're a lot heavier though, for sure. You have to lift the hives yourself?
Normally I get Gary and Travis to help me, but we'll knock the bees out and try and get as light as we can before we bring it to the truck, and then we park as close as we can too.
Oh, that's nice. And you've got so you got all your own equipment and everything then, bee suit, smoker, hive tool.
Yes, sir.
All that. It's pretty nice. And how often do you take care of your hives?
Normally every weekend, but during winter we don't open them as much, so it could be about every other weekend.
Yeah.
And just try and get the warmest days and the days that aren't going to be as windy, so it'll be nice.
Yeah, so that's pretty often. We get to ours about once a month. So yeah, if you can do it more often, we usually try to tell the new people to do at least once a month, but more often is better. And if you do it more often like you can actually catch if there's a problem. If you wait too long, it's sometimes they just don't have the population to rebound, or you have a drone layer or something, and it's just too late. So yeah, you're doing better on that regard. You probably keep them alive a little longer. What initially kind of got you into beekeeping?
So to get into beekeeping, I went to UF Bee College, and I went there and I met some new people like Amy Vu, and they all were just really happy to see a child or a kid my age that wanted to see what it's about and different things about it. So I went there and I learned a lot. I learned about my beeswax traps, which I make, and I learned how the commercials do it and how local people maintain and do requeening and all this type of stuff. And then I learned the more sciencey and the more biology part of it, and then I learned how to bottle and all that with Gary, and he helped me do and bottle and sell with the business side.
So you said Amy Vu, is she the one that's on the 2 Bees in a podcast?
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's I'm jealous. I want to meet them really bad. Did you get to meet Dr. Ellis at all? You did?
Yeah, we went to a few of his classes and seen him.
Oh wow, I'm super jealous. I'm like a big nerd. I listen to their stuff all the time. That's really awesome. Yeah, they sound really nice. You must have learned a lot.
Yeah, I think once a year they come in here and they do a speech in here. I think they didn't do it this year, but they got the people who were going to put it together. They couldn't make it, so they decided to call it off. But they should be having it next year. So
I saw you brought a bottle of honey in here that you won an award for. Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, so I won light extracted honey, which is pretty much you just enter 3 bottles of honey, and it's judged off everything you can have in honey. So it's judged off any sort of fingerprints or scratches on the lid or dinks on the lid. And if you have fingerprints on the glass bottle, you have to polish all that off before show. And any sort of like cleansing, like where you use any sort of cleaning, like anything that has odors in it, if the judges smells the bottle and they smell like some sort of chemically smell, they won't like that. They'll use a light and they'll see if there's any debris or bubbles on the inside, which you wouldn't like. So most people just ride that in their car for a few weeks. You don't have any bubbles. If you have the fill line, if you can see daylight through it, that means it's underfilled. So you'll look at that. If it's overfilled, they can open it and you won't have a clean airspace. If you have any sort of foam or floating debris in that at the top, they'll count points off for that. Or if you even close the lid too tight, they'll see if there's any marks in the lid. So where it won't seal right. There's so many things against it, and you have to have 3 perfect bottles like that.
Wow, and where was this at?
This was at UF,
wow.
At their bee college.
And you won Best Honey in the state of Florida?
Yes, sir. I won Best for tasting and Best extracted. So for the tasting, it's black jar is what you call it, and you'll just put your honey in a jar, and it'll go through different stages of judge and stewards, and they just all vote for their best one and go through different stages, and whichever they all like the most would be the one that would win. So I won that and the light extracted.
Wow, that's really impressive. Do you sell your Tupelo anywhere?
Yeah, I sell it every year at the Tupelo Festival, which we don't get to make much every year since it's such a short flow, but every time we make it, we just sell it at the Tupelo Festival, and I sell all the rest of my products there too.
Do you have a company name?
Yeah, it's called Awesome Blossom Honey, and so I sell my beeswax traps and bath bombs and my honey, which this year I had wildflower, Tupelo, and orange blossom honey.
Tell me about those beeswax traps.
Beeswax wraps. So
wraps. I'm sorry.
Wraps.
I thought it said traps.
They're beeswax wraps, so it's like reusable press and seal or saran wrap, and it's to help with our use of microplastics. So all it is beeswax, jojoba oil, and pine resin, and we just put it on a little like cotton piece of fabric, and then we melt it all together, and it's like saran wrap almost, but more renewable and usable. So every time you use it, you just heat it with heat of your hands. You can put it like straight over bowls or fruit, and then once you're done with it, just put it in the sink, and you'll just hand wash it with lukewarm water, and then it'll be ready to use again for 6 to 8 months.
Oh wow, that sounds cool. Yeah, I've not heard of that before. That sounds interesting. And you were telling me earlier that where you're at in Wewah, you have a different type of Tupelo that's other places?
Yeah, in Wewah we have white Tupelo, which is Wewah and like down the Apalachicola River, the only places we have the type of Tupelo we have. So it's white Tupelo, and down our river and down a few like creeks and things off of it, that's the only place you can find it because it's the right temperature and the right area to have it, environment to have it. So if you go up north, you will have a different type of black Tupelo honey, which does not taste nearly as good. It's a really short honey flow season, so you normally only have 2 to 4 weeks, which it was a short season this year because a tornado came through and it knocked all of our blooms off. And if you have any sort of like dew or anything on your blooms, the bees won't want to go to it, and they'll find a different source.
I drove through Wewah, actually. I had forgotten about that tornado. I saw a house that had been blown over during that time. I didn't even think about that. That must have really hurt the Tupelo crop.
Yeah, it was maybe 2 weeks for our flow this year, so we didn't get too much, but it was enough.
It doesn't crystallize very quickly, right?
No, normally for like Tupelo, rather than our wildflower this year, it's pretty much the bottom of our bottles are sugared already. So Tupelo, it's probably not nearly, it's not going to sugar for probably another 5 to 10 years. But it's way richer than any sort of other honey you could find most of the time.
I've heard that it has a lower glycemic index, so people who maybe are pre-diabetic or something, it doesn't spike their insulin quite as much.
So that we figured out, we have a cousin that has it, and we've used that. It doesn't make a difference.
People who say like honey helps with allergies and stuff, I'm like, sure.
Well, it helps with the allergies if you're in a 2 to 3 mile radius. It's just depending on where the pollen you're reacting to is in that area. So if that pollen's not in that honey, it's not going to do anything. It's just taste of it, really.
I see a lot of people that have like hay fever and stuff, but some of those things the bees don't collect pollen from. A lot of those things are wind pollinated that most people are allergic to. That's how I've understood it.
It just depends on where you're at. Like, we have people that come which they only live maybe a few miles from our bees, so it helps them a lot. But if you live like in a different town and you come to get some sort of wildflower honey because you think it helps your allergies, it doesn't really do much because it's not the same pollen that you're reacting to.
So it's best to support your local beekeepers then.
Yeah, it'd be the same. That's what, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I mean, we should definitely support local beekeepers, local everything, we best we can. So I was told that you're also enrolled in the bee college. Is that correct?
Yeah, I go to their beekeeping, their meetings every year and all their different events, and I compete in their judging and all that.
And you're one of the youngest people there?
Yeah, that so far all the places we've gone, I'm the youngest person that I've seen that isn't like somebody's grandkid that just came because they had to.
I can't remember if you told me earlier, but what generation beekeeper are you?
I'm a fourth generation beekeeper.
You already know how to make queens.
Yeah, so I have Travis. He has showed me everything I know about doing grafting and all that. Now I haven't done it too much. I have some practice, but not enough.
So you know how to make a starter hive or an graft and collect the cells. Do you guys put them in incubators, or do you just leave them in the hive until they're ripe?
At first we started using incubators, but we figured out they have a higher acceptance rate if you just put them in a hive and they incubate it themselves, and the bees just work on it themselves.
Do you think it's because the temperature in the incubator is not very accurate?
It could be, just it depends. It's better for whenever you're doing it like out of season, like during winter it'd be better, but during like a good grafting season, it's better for the workers in the hive to draw the cells out themselves, and they know everything. They're going to be the best people to do it rather than us. We don't know what's happening. They know everything about it.
So are you grafting the larva into those plastic like JZPZ cell
Yes,
cups,
sir.
and then putting that into a queenless hive and letting them complete it themselves?
We put about 35 on a frame, which we just put 3 bars across the frame, and then we put it into a queenless hive and wait on them to draw out all the cells. And before they're ready to hatch, we'll just take them off and put them into any of our queenless hives, and we'll just make splits in different hives off that.
You let like a starter hive cap the queen cells. As soon as they're capped, then you put them in, kind of let them incubate in the queenless hive.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I've always been a little paranoid when they first get capped, of dislodging the queen larva. Do you ever have any problems with that?
We haven't had problems with that. We kind of trial and error, just figure it out, and if it doesn't work, then we try it a different way, pretty much.
Better than at least in the beehive, the power doesn't go out and your incubator gets cold, and or you accidentally kick it. And I've done that, or it spikes the temperature to 120 plus degrees and melts your cells. And incubators are certainly not perfect. I have learned that the hard way. Guess you're really like the next generation of beekeepers. I don't meet very many other beekeepers around your age. I don't see that many female beekeepers, if I'm being honest. So you're kind of both. Do you have any advice for anybody else that's around your age or other female beekeepers? Words of advice, people who might be interested in getting started?
I'd say just don't give up once it gets hard. If you just keep going and go with the flow, it gets easier. And just don't let people, what they think, bring you down, because sometimes it doesn't go the best. So if you just stay strong and just keep going, it gets easier.
That's good advice. What are your plans for the future, for your hives and for your business?
Hopefully I'll get higher and more hives, and I can go online with my beeswax traps and bath bombs and get into more stores and hopefully go commercial.
Oh, you want to go commercial?
I do want to go to commercial so I can get my honey into stores and my wraps and more things out of farmers markets and into bigger stores.
Wow, how many hives would you like to run?
I'm not really sure. I'm going to get into the hundreds, and then maybe I'll go up from there.
It's kind of it gets a little bit addicting at a certain point, or you just get so much, you get so invested, it's hard to get back out. Oh, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I have a ton of support and people that want to help me get bigger and better and grow my business a lot.
Yeah, well, you have all that family, and then that support system makes a huge difference. When I talk to the Cuts, they're that way, with Ryan Cuts being 5th generation, and his grandfather was so well known around here, and his dad's really great, and it's really nice to have that support system. I'm very jealous of that. I didn't have that. I got into it knowing nothing. So you should definitely tap into that support. I wish I had people to get out and help me sometimes. So you're very lucky there.
Go to UF. Everybody there is amazing, and they've shown me a lot of different managing and how to test for mites, like their sugar shake and alcohol wash. I learned how to do all of that from UF.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I would love to go check that place out. Anything else you can think of you want to add to the podcast?
I will say shout out to Blue Eyed Girls Honey. I wouldn't be anywhere without them.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, Thank you so much, Emily, for joining us today on the Pollination Podcast, and I really wish you luck. It's very impressive what you've done already. You've got a great head start on most of the people I know, so you should have a very promising future, I think.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Pollination Podcast. I'm Matthew Walker from Walk in the Woods Apiary. We hope we have answered a few of your beekeeping and pollinator questions. Please share your questions and comments to our Facebook page at the Pollination Podcast.